Lady Bird is a triumphant 2017 coming-of-age film centered around high school senior, Christine, Lady Bird, and her conflicting relationship with her mother Marion. The two of them are seemingly always at odds with one another, whether it be over what college Lady Bird wants to go to or what dress she should wear to prom. Marion feels she should maintain control over her daughter's life decisions regardless of if she is a legal adult or not. This frustrates Lady Bird, who just wants independence and the ability to make her own choices. However, despite all the dialectical tension, Lady Bird finds that she understands her mother and a newfound appreciation for her is born. The film opens with Lady Bird and her mother departing from a college trip, listening to an emotional audiobook, and seemingly finding a mutual understanding in each other's tears. Then, just as quickly as the audiobook ends, the two of them begin arguing. Lady Bird says she wants to
live through something,
which sets her mother off as she interprets this as her daughter being ungrateful. This argument eventually leads back to the topic of college and Marion being especially harsh, saying that Lady Bird should
just go to city college and then to jail and then back to city college.
This emotive language was meant as a jab at Lady Bird's work ethic, and in turn she jumps out of the car. She does this as a sort of punishment to her mother as well as a way to escape the conversation. The topic of Lady Bird's education is specifically tender because Marion doesn't want her daughter to go to an out-of-state college on account of it being too financially burdensome. No matter what solutions Lady Bird provides for this issue, her mother does not take them into account. Clearly, their needs are clashing on this topic, but it doesn't end there. When Lady Bird finds a prom dress that she loves, her mother does not feel the same way. The two have a verbal conversation while Lady Bird is in the dressing room and Marion is waiting outside. She asks her mother,
"Why can't you say I look nice?"
And her mother replies with confusion, believing Lady Bird didn't care what she thought. It's illustrated here that even though Lady Bird doesn't agree with a lot of what her mother has to say, she still feels the need to be liked and accepted by her. This need is not being met, and in turn she says,
"I wish that you liked me."
To which Marion replies with,
"Of course I love you."
This affectionate language does not land. Lady Bird's mother does not understand what her daughter needs from her even when she's directly told what these needs are. In response to Lady Bird's answer,
"Do you like me?"
she says,
I want you to be the very best version of yourself that you can be.
This is not a straight answer and turns the discussion towards Marion's needs instead of Lady Bird's. It is obvious here that Lady Bird was attempting to have a breakthrough and connect to her mother but was unsuccessful, which in turn leaves her feeling even more separated from her. On another night, Lady Bird gets home late from a school dance which displeases her mother. She is sitting on her bed, laundry everywhere, and her mother opens the door and scolds her for it. Lady Bird tries to defend herself but is unsuccessful. She doesn't say much while her mother yells at her. Finally, when things get quiet, she says,
"Didn't you ever go to sleep without putting all your clothes away perfectly? Like even once? And don't you wish your mom hadn't gotten angry?"
To this Marion just replies,
My mother was an abusive alcoholic.
And no more is said. Marion competing here was unnecessary and did not help anyone. As a result, what could have ended as an exciting night for Lady Bird turned into another conflictive one. Throughout the course of the movie, Lady Bird is hiding the fact that she applied for schools in New York from her mom. Her father, Larry, knows and helps her to do it. The two come to the agreement that it's best not to tell Marion about any of this unless Lady Bird gets accepted. When she ends up getting accepted into one and her mom accidentally finds out at Lady Bird's graduation dinner, all hell breaks loose. The family returns home from the dinner with Marion giving her daughter the silent treatment while Lady Bird profusely apologizes and cries to her mother but to no avail. Using the silent treatment against her daughter was a cruel act of withholding, and the two don't properly speak again on screen the rest of the film. Keeping this particular topic private was not an incredible choice on Lady Bird and her father's part. But it did result in Lady Bird attending a school she preferred and led to a big turning point in her and her mother's relationship, a point of understanding. When she arrives in New York City, Lady Bird begins going by her birth name Christine again, and in the final scene she calls home and tells her mother,
"Thank you."
There is a compassionate connotation to her statement accompanied by an empathetic smile. In contrast, earlier in the film Lady Bird and her mother get into a heated argument where Marion says,
Whatever we give you, it's never enough.
Lady Bird professes.
It is enough.
But her mother doesn't stop. She implements past digging, bluntly throwing out,
Wrong side of the tracks.
in reference to a joke Lady Bird made to her friend about where her house is located. The emotive language used here was clearly hurtful to Marion, but instead of acknowledging her own feelings and working towards resolve, she brings up how Lady Bird's behavior makes her father feel in front of him, disregarding pleas from him not to do so. Lady Bird is apologetic, but the argument ultimately turns into a conflict spiral when Lady Bird asks her mother to.
Give me a number.
Her mother is confused, and so Lady Bird continues by saying,
You give me a number for how much it costs to raise me, and I'm gonna get older and make a lot of money and write you a check for what I owe you so that I never have to speak to you again.
Marion responds with,
Well, I highly doubt that you will be able to get a job good enough to do that.
In return, Lady Bird withdraws from the conversation by storming out of the room. If I were Lady Bird, I would have asked my dad to talk to my mom. He was very quiet and introspective throughout the film. I believe he would make a good middleman and help to ease tensions between the two. Dialectical tensions are normal and to be expected in any relationship, but these two experience them far too often for it to be considered healthy. Both fail to take the other's needs into account seriously enough for any real change to be enacted. Marion wants to feel appreciated but demonstrates it in ineffective ways. Lady Bird wants freedom and for her mother to like her but can never seem to get through to her. The two of them would have benefited greatly from sitting down and calmly talking things over with an end goal or compromise in mind. They could have taken turns sharing how they felt or tried perspective taking. If Lady Bird put herself in her mother's shoes, maybe she would have understood sooner how hard her parents worked to provide for their family. And vice versa, if Marion considered how suffocated Lady Bird felt being controlled all the time, she may have eased up on how strict she was. The validation from each side would have been very helpful. They could have even implemented Larry as a mediator in the conversation. I think Lady Bird and Marion are more similar than the two would like to believe. They'd learn a lot about each other and about themselves if they were willing to try. But instead, in tense moments like their ongoing verbal altercations, it appears the two will never understand one another.